Attached book summary. The science of why people chase, withdraw, and stay secure. The relationship patterns most people misread. A clear, practical breakdown of how attached explains adult attachment, why anxious and avoidant partners often collide, and what secure love actually looks like. Attached. The new science of adult attachment, and how it can help you find and keep. Love is a psychology and self-development book by psychiatrist and neuroscientist Amir Levine, MD, and psychologist Rachel Heller. The big idea of the book. Attached argues that many romantic problems are not random, mysterious, or proof that someone is too needy or bad at love. They often come from predictable attachment systems, patterns of emotional safety, fear, closeness, distance, reassurance, and independence. The book's central claim is blunt. Compatibility is not only about attraction, values, humor, sex, or shared interests. It is also about how two nervous systems behave when intimacy becomes real. That is why attached became so sticky. It gives names to patterns people usually experience as confusion. The person who needs reassurance is not simply dramatic. The person who withdraws after closeness is not simply busy. The calm partner is not boring by default. The relationship itself becomes a system, and each person's attachment style helps explain why the system either stabilizes or turns into a loop. The book is especially powerful because it attacks one of modern dating's most damaging myths, that needing someone is weakness. Levine and Heller argue that adult romantic attachment is not a childish defect. It is part of how human bonding works. The real issue is not whether people need connection. The issue is whether that need is handled directly, securely, and with a compatible partner. The argument, in one flow. Attached begins from a simple observation. Romantic relationships often produce patterns that people can feel but cannot explain. One person feels calm when a partner is close. Another becomes hyper-alert, checking tone, timing, messages, and small changes. Another enjoys the beginning of intimacy, but starts to feel trapped when the relationship becomes dependable. The book's first move is to place those behaviors inside attachment theory. Attachment theory originated in the work of John Bowlby and was later expanded by Mary Ainsworth. AP's 2026 overview notes that Bowlby studied children separated from caregivers, while Ainsworth observed how children reacted to separations and reunions. The theory was later applied to adult romantic relationships. Levine and Heller do not use attachment as abstract academic theory. They turn it into a working map for dating and relationships. The map has three main styles: anxious, avoidant, and secure. The anxious person is highly sensitive to relationship threat. They notice delays, distance, mixed signals, changes in warmth, and emotional ambiguity. Their attachment system activates quickly. Once activated, they can find it hard to settle until connection is restored. That can lead to repeated texting, overthinking, protest behavior, emotional escalation, jealousy, or an urgent need to define what is happening. The avoidant person is sensitive to the loss of independence. They may want connection, but closeness can start to feel like pressure. They may idealize freedom, keep emotional distance, deactivate their feelings, focus on a partner's flaws, withdraw after intimacy, or create uncertainty to preserve space. Their attachment system is not absent. It is organized around keeping dependency under control. The secure person is comfortable with closeness and autonomy at the same time. They tend to communicate directly, repair conflict, offer reassurance without treating it as humiliation, and expect relationships to be a source of support rather than a battlefield. Penguin's official description summarizes the secure style as comfortable with intimacy and usually warm and loving. The book's argument then becomes more specific. It is not enough to know your own style. You must understand what happens when styles interact. The most explosive pairing in attached is the anxious-avoidant trap. An anxious partner seeks closeness to feel safe. An avoidant partner experiences that pursuit as pressure and pulls back. The anxious partner then feels the withdrawal more intensely and pursues harder. The avoidant partner feels even more crowded and distances further. Both people think they are reacting to the other person's behavior. But the deeper pattern is structural. One nervous system reaches for proximity under stress, the other reaches for distance. This is why the book is not merely saying, some people are clingy and some people are cold. Its sharper claim is that certain pairings create self-reinforcing loops. The anxious partner often becomes more anxious than they would be with a secure partner. The avoidant partner often becomes more avoidant than they would be with someone who does not activate the same level of pursuit. The relationship magnifies both styles. The authors also challenge the cultural glamour around emotional unavailability. Modern dating often treats mystery, inconsistency, and distance as signs of value. Attached argues the opposite. Inconsistent attention can be intoxicating because it activates the attachment system, not because it proves depth. A person may feel obsessed not because the bond is uniquely meaningful, but because the uncertainty is keeping their nervous system in a state of alarm. That distinction is one of the book's strongest ideas. It separates intensity from security. A calm relationship may feel less dramatic because it is less threatening. An unstable relationship may feel powerful because the body is constantly trying to regain safety. Attached asks readers to stop using emotional activation as proof of love. The book then moves into dating strategy. It argues that people should treat attachment style as a core compatibility factor early, not as a private flaw to be hidden until later. Instead of trying to become low maintenance, mysterious, or perfectly detached, readers are encouraged to communicate needs plainly and observe the response. This is where the book becomes practical. If someone needs emotional consistency, they should not pretend to be indifferent. If someone wants a committed relationship, they should not perform casualness to keep an avoidant partner interested. If someone is dating a person who repeatedly sends mixed signals, the question is not, how do I become more attractive? The better question is this person capable of the kind of bond I am actually seeking? The book's most radical advice is not loud. It is anti-performance. Levine and Heller argue that effective dependency is healthy. When people are securely connected, they often function better, explore more, take more risks, and become less preoccupied. A secure bond does not shrink a person. It frees attention. This runs against the common dating ideology that independence means needing nothing. Attached reframes dependence as a biological and emotional fact. People do depend on partners. The difference is whether that dependency is stable, mutual, and openly handled, or unstable, denied, and turned into games. From there, the book gives readers tools to identify attachment style. It uses questionnaires, relationship examples, and behavioral clues. The goal is not to diagnose people clinically. It is to notice patterns quickly enough to make better choices. A secure partner, in the book's framework, does not leave you guessing for long. They are generally direct, available, consistent, and responsive. They do not turn every need into a negotiation over power. They can discuss conflict without using distance as punishment. They do not require the other person to become emotionally smaller in order to keep the peace. An anxious partner may be loving, attentive, loyal, and deeply invested, but can become consumed when the bond feels uncertain. Their challenge is not that they care. Their challenge is that they can confuse activation with evidence. A late reply, a cooler tone, or an ambiguous plan can become the start of a mental spiral. They may then behave in ways designed to regain contact, but which actually create more instability. An avoidant partner may be charming, self-sufficient, interesting, and genuinely capable of affection, but closeness triggers their defense system. Their challenge is not that they lack feeling. It is that dependency can feel like danger. They may keep one foot outside the relationship, idealize an ex, delay commitment, avoid emotional conversations, or create distance after moments of closeness. The book is especially useful when it explains deactivating strategies. These are the mental moves avoidant people use to reduce intimacy: focusing on flaws, imagining better alternatives, keeping secrets, comparing a real partner to an ideal one, pulling away after sex, or telling themselves they are not ready. The key insight is that these thoughts can feel like rational evaluations while also functioning as emotional defenses. The anxious equivalent is protest behavior. Protest behavior is not direct communication. It is behavior designed to get a reaction. Excessive calls, withdrawal to provoke pursuit, threats to leave, attempts to make a partner jealous, scorekeeping, or emotional tests. The anxious partner wants reassurance, but asks for it through pressure, drama, or indirect signals. Attached is strongest when it shows that both anxious and avoidant behaviors are attempts to regulate fear. The anxious person fears abandonment. The avoidant person fears engulfment. Both can interpret the other's coping strategy as proof of danger. The anxious partner sees withdrawal and thinks, "I am being abandoned." The avoidant partner sees pursuit and thinks, "I am being trapped." The secure style interrupts that loop. Secure people tend to assume problems can be discussed. They do not usually treat reassurance as defeat. They are less likely to punish vulnerability. Because of that, they can calm an anxious partner instead of inflaming them, and they can sometimes make closeness feel safer for an avoidant partner. However, the book does not present secure partners as magical healers who should absorb endless dysfunction. Its better message is choice. If you are anxious, secure partners are usually better for you than avoidant partners. If you are avoidant, a secure relationship may offer a healthier model of closeness. If you are secure, you still need boundaries and should not mistake emotional steadiness for an obligation to fix someone else. The authors then attack another dating mistake, confusing the early spark with long-term compatibility. The anxious-avoidant trap can create powerful chemistry because the system is built on intermittent reward. Warmth appears, disappears, returns, and disappears again. The anxious partner experiences relief as romance. The avoidant partner experiences distance as control. Both may interpret the cycle as passion. Attached asks readers to judge relationships by regulation, not just attraction. Does the relationship make you more stable or more preoccupied? Can you ask for what you need without being punished? Does conflict lead to repair or disappearance? Are you becoming yourself more fully? Or are you spending your life decoding another person? The book's practical solution is effective communication. This means stating needs early, clearly, and without accusation. The point is not to deliver speeches. The point is to reveal the actual requirement and observe whether the other person can respond. For example, an anxious person might say they value consistent communication and clarity when plans change. A secure partner may not meet every preference perfectly, but they will usually respond with interest, respect, or compromise. An avoidant partner may label the need as pressure, become defensive, or withdraw. The response gives information. This matters because attached does not believe love should require endless decoding. If a relationship depends on hiding your needs, the match is already telling you something. The book encourages readers to become more honest, not more strategic. The argument then broadens into relationship maintenance. Secure functioning is not just about choosing the right person. It is about behaving in ways that create safety, responding to bids for connection, repairing after conflict, being reliable, not weaponizing distance, and understanding that partners affect each other's emotional state. The book's view of love is practical rather than mystical. It does not say romance should be effortless. It says the basic emotional structure should not be permanently hostile to your needs. Work is expected. Chronic insecurity is not. A major consequence follows. The right relationship should reduce the need for games. In a secure bond, people still have conflict, irritation, competing needs, and difficult conversations. But the relationship is not organized around uncertainty. You do not have to turn yourself into a detective to understand whether you matter. This is why Attached remains useful years after publication. It gives readers a way to separate ordinary imperfection from structural incompatibility. A partner forgetting to text once is not the same as a pattern of emotional unavailability. A person needing space after stress is not the same as someone who repeatedly uses distance to avoid intimacy. A disagreement is not the same as a bond that constantly activates panic. The book also has limits. It can make attachment style feel too neat if readers use it lazily. AP's 2026 discussion of attachment style misconceptions notes that Levine himself has warned against treating childhood attachment as a permanent adult destiny, and other experts caution that labels can become rigid or harmful when people use them as fixed identities. That warning matters. Attached is best used as a pattern recognition tool, not a courtroom verdict. It helps identify tendencies. It does not remove responsibility, replace therapy, or explain every act of cruelty, immaturity, addiction, trauma, dishonesty, or incompatibility. Its enduring value is sharper than Know Your Attachment Style. The book teaches readers to watch the emotional economy of a relationship. Who absorbs uncertainty? Who sets the terms of closeness? Who gets to have needs? Who is always adjusting? Who feels calmer over time? And who feels less like themselves? The most important ideas inside the argument. The first major idea is that attachment needs are normal. Attached rejects the idea that healthy adults should be emotionally self-sufficient in the sense of needing nobody. The authors argue that humans are wired for connection, and romantic partners can become attachment figures. This changes the moral frame. Need is not automatically weakness. The question is whether need is expressed clearly, met respectfully, and balanced with mutual care. The second major idea is that attachment styles shape perception. An anxious person may see threat quickly because uncertainty feels dangerous. An avoidant person may see intimacy as control because dependency feels dangerous. A secure person is more likely to see closeness as safe and conflict as manageable. That means people in the same relationship can live in different emotional realities. Experiences a delayed reply as abandonment. Experiences a request for reassurance as intrusion. Neither reaction is random. Each is filtered through an attachment system. The third major idea is that anxious and avoidant styles often attract and destabilize each other. The anxious partner's pursuit confirms the avoidant partner's fear of being trapped. The avoidant partner's withdrawal confirms the anxious partner's fear of being left. The result is not merely conflict. It is a machine that manufactures more of the very behavior each person fears. The fourth major idea is that secure love is not boring. It can feel boring only to people who have learned to associate uncertainty with desire. Attached argues that security is not a lack of passion. It is the removal of unnecessary threat. The fifth major idea is that direct communication is a filter. When you express a need cleanly, you learn whether the other person can meet you in reality. If they can, the relationship becomes safer. If they cannot, the information arrives earlier. The sixth major idea is that compatibility should be judged by the pattern, not the peak. Many unstable relationships contain beautiful moments. The question is whether those moments are the foundation or the temporary relief between injuries. The strongest chapter or section. The strongest part of Attached is its explanation of the anxious-avoidant trap. This is the section most readers remember because it describes a common relationship pattern with uncomfortable precision. The anxious-avoidant trap matters because it explains why some relationships feel impossible to leave, even when they are repeatedly painful. The anxious partner receives enough closeness to stay attached, but not enough consistency to feel secure. The avoidant partner receives enough intimacy to feel connected, but enough distance to avoid full vulnerability. That creates a cycle of intermittent reinforcement. Relief becomes addictive. A kind message after distance feels more powerful than steady kindness from someone safe. A reunion after conflict feels like proof of love, even when the underlying pattern has not changed. This section is also strong because it shifts the reader away from self-blame. An anxious person may think, "I ruined it by needing too much." An avoidant person may think, "They ruined it by demanding too much." Attached shows how both may be participating in a loop neither fully understands. The value is practical. Once you can name the loop, you can stop worshiping it. You can ask whether the relationship is actually growing or merely repeating activation and relief. The weakest chapter or section. The weakest part of attached is not its core framework. The weakness is the risk of over-application. A 3-style model is memorable, but human beings are messier than 3 boxes. People can behave differently with different partners. Stress, trauma, grief, addiction, age, health, culture, and relationship history can all affect behavior. A person may look avoidant in one relationship because that relationship is unsafe, not because their entire attachment system is avoidant. The book also risks making secure attachment sound easier to identify than it can be in practice. Some people can perform secure behavior early. Some anxious people appear calm while they are trying to be chosen. Some avoidant people appear intensely available during the chase and only withdraw once commitment becomes real. The framework works best over time. Patterns reveal themselves under pressure, missed expectations, conflict, illness, commitment talks, sexual vulnerability, family stress, money problems, and emotional disappointment. Early chemistry is too noisy to be trusted alone. Another limitation is that the book can be misused to pathologize a partner. "You are avoidant" can become a weapon. "I am anxious" can become an excuse. The more useful phrasing is behavioral. When closeness increases, you tend to pull away. Or when plans are unclear, I become preoccupied and need direct communication. The label should serve the evidence. It should not replace it. What the book proves. Attached proves, at least as a practical relationship guide, that many romantic conflicts become clearer when viewed through attachment patterns. It shows that the same behavior can have different emotional meanings, depending on the person's style. A need for reassurance may be an anxious attempt to restore safety. A sudden retreat may be an avoidant attempt to restore autonomy. A calm repair attempt may be secure functioning. The book also proves that dating advice built around detachment can be harmful for people who actually need clarity. Playing cool may attract someone temporarily, but it does not build the kind of relationship an anxious person needs to feel well. Pretending not to care is not the same as becoming secure. Most importantly, attached proves that emotional consistency is not a luxury. For many people, it is the condition that allows love to function. What the book does not prove. Attached does not prove that every relationship problem comes from attachment style. Some problems are about values. Some are about character. Some are about timing, addiction, dishonesty, abuse, mental health, immaturity, or incompatible life goals. It also does not prove that avoidant people are villains or anxious people are victims. The anxious partner can behave unfairly. The avoidant partner can be genuinely overwhelmed. A secure relationship does not mean one person gets unlimited reassurance and the other has no need for space. The book does not prove that people are fixed. Modern discussion of attachment increasingly stresses flexibility, and AP's 2026 article notes Levine's view that attachment style is not set in stone and can change through repeated secure interactions. Nor does the book prove that the secure partner should carry all the labor. Security is not martyrdom. A secure bond requires responsiveness from both sides. What most summaries miss. Most summaries of attached focus on the 3 labels and stop there. That misses the book's deeper insight. Attachment style is not just a personality description. It is a prediction of what someone does when intimacy becomes stressful. The anxious person is not defined by wanting love. They are defined by what happens when they sense disconnection. The avoidant person is not defined by enjoying independence. They are defined by what happens when closeness starts to feel binding. The secure person is not defined by being perfect. They are defined by the ability to stay emotionally available without collapsing into panic or retreat. Shallow summaries also miss the book's attack on romantic intensity. Attached is quietly hostile to the idea that suffering proves love. It asks whether the relationship is producing safety or merely keeping the attachment system inflamed. Another missed point is that direct communication is not only a relationship skill, it is a selection tool. You communicate clearly not just to get your needs met, but to discover whether the other person has the capacity and willingness to meet them. What most people misunderstand. The most common misunderstanding is turning attachment styles into identities. Someone says, "I am anxious," as if that sentence explains everything they do. Someone else says, "I am avoidant," as if that removes responsibility. Another person says, "I only date secures," as if secure people can be selected like a product category. Attached is more useful than that. It gives readers a behavioral lens. The right question is not, "What label am I?" The right question is, "What pattern happens in me, with this person, under this pressure?" Another misunderstanding is assuming secure love will always feel immediately exciting. For someone used to inconsistency, security can feel unfamiliar. The nervous system may not register calm as chemistry at first. It may register calm as absence. That is dangerous, because it can cause people to reject the very relationships that would make them healthier. They chase activation because activation feels like proof. Attached asks them to test that assumption. The dangerous misreading. The dangerous misreading of attached is using it to chase an avoidant partner more strategically. A reader may think, "Now I understand them. If I become calmer, less demanding, and more secure, I can finally get them to love me properly." That is not the strongest use of the book. The better use is harsher. "Now I understand the pattern. I can stop confusing their intermittent closeness with compatibility." The book should not become a manual for tolerating less. It should become a manual for recognizing what your nervous system is doing and choosing relationships that do not require constant self-abandonment. Another dangerous misreading is using anxious attachment to justify protest behavior. Needing reassurance is legitimate. Punishing, testing, threatening, or manipulating someone to get reassurance is not. Attached validates attachment needs, but it does not make every attachment-driven action healthy. The final dangerous misreading is treating avoidant people as incapable of love. That is too simple. Avoidance strategies often protect against vulnerability, dependency, and perceived loss of self. The issue is not whether feeling exists. The issue is whether the person can act with enough consistency, honesty, and courage for a relationship to be safe. The tailored interpretation. Attached is really a book about emotional incentives. Every relationship rewards certain behaviors. In a secure relationship, honesty is rewarded with understanding, repair, or negotiation. In an anxious-avoidant relationship, honesty is often punished with distance, and distance is rewarded with pursuit. Over time, people learn the rules of the emotional economy they are living inside. That is why the book matters beyond dating. It teaches a brutal life principle. Do not judge a system by its promises. Judge it by the behavior it repeatedly produces. A relationship may claim to be loving while training one person to shrink their needs. It may claim to be free while training the other person to avoid accountability. It may claim to be passionate while surviving mainly on uncertainty. Attached gives readers permission to ask a less romantic but more useful question. What is this bond teaching me to become? If the answer is calmer, clearer, more honest, more generous, and more myself, the relationship is probably moving in the right direction. If the answer is smaller, more obsessive, more strategic, more jealous, and more dependent on crumbs of reassurance, The relationship may be activating attachment rather than deepening love. Why this book still matters. Attached still matters because modern dating has normalized ambiguity. People are told not to care too much, not to reply too fast, not to ask too early, not to need clarity, not to appear available, and not to make themselves vulnerable before the other person does. That culture is almost perfectly designed to injure anxious people and flatter avoidant people. The anxious person becomes trapped in decoding. The avoidant person can call distance independence. The secure person may exit because the whole market looks emotionally inefficient. The book cuts through that by making consistency attractive again. It treats reliability not as dullness, but as evidence. It treats clarity not as pressure, but as respect. It treats secure communication not as a loss of power, but as the foundation of adult intimacy. The book also matters because attachment language has become mainstream, sometimes in distorted form. AP reported in 2026 that attachment styles are now part of mainstream relationship thinking, while also highlighting expert concern that people often oversimplify them. That mainstreaming makes attached more useful and more risky. Useful because people finally have language for their patterns. Risky because language can harden into excuses. Read properly. The book is not saying, find your label and live inside it. It is saying, notice your pattern, choose better systems, communicate earlier, and stop mistaking threat for love. If you only remember 3 ideas. First, your need for closeness is not automatically the problem. The problem is whether you are choosing people who can respond to closeness with care, clarity, and consistency. Second, chemistry can be manufactured by uncertainty. If someone's distance makes you obsessed, that does not prove they are special. It may prove your attachment system is activated. Third, secure love is behavioral. It is not a slogan, a vibe, or a dating app claim. It shows itself through repair, reliability, directness, warmth, and the ability to stay present when needs are expressed. The sentence that explains the book. Attached says love becomes healthier when people stop treating emotional security as neediness and start treating it as compatibility data. The real-life test. The real-life test of attached is simple. Watch what happens when you ask clearly for something reasonable. Ask for clarity on plans. Ask for consistency in communication. Ask to discuss a conflict instead of pretending it disappeared. Ask whether the relationship is moving toward the same goal. Ask for reassurance without apologizing for having a nervous system. Then, watch the pattern. A secure person may not give you everything instantly, but they will usually engage with a request. They will want to understand. They will negotiate. They will care about impact. An avoidant person may experience the request as control, criticism, or pressure. They may deflect, minimize, disappear, or make you feel guilty for asking. One moment does not define them, but a repeated pattern gives you information. An anxious person may respond warmly at first, but become dysregulated if the request triggers fear of rejection. They may need reassurance that the request is not abandonment. Again, the issue is not one reaction. The issue is whether repair becomes possible. For your own behavior, the test is equally direct. When you feel activated, can you state the real need without protest behavior? When you feel crowded, can you ask for space without devaluing the other person? When someone communicates honestly, do you reward that honesty or punish it? Attached becomes useful only when it changes selection and behavior. The point is not to identify patterns forever. The point is to stop living inside the worst ones. 5 questions to test whether you understood the book. Can you explain the difference between genuine love and attachment system activation? Can you describe how an anxious partner and an avoidant partner accidentally intensify each other's fears? Can you name the behaviors that make secure attachment visible in ordinary life? Can you communicate a relationship need directly without turning it into a test, threat, or performance? Can you judge a relationship by its repeated pattern rather than its best emotional moments? The final lesson. The final lesson of Attached is that love should not require you to become less honest in order to keep someone close. A relationship does not have to be perfect to be secure. It does not have to be conflict-free, constantly romantic, or immune to stress. But it should allow truth. It should allow needs. It should allow repair. If a bond repeatedly makes you strategic, silent, obsessive, diminished, or afraid to ask for basic emotional consistency, the problem is not that you have failed to master love. The problem may be that the relationship is built against your nervous system. Attached gives the reader a clean standard. Choose the person and the pattern that makes emotional honesty safer.